The Trek Geeks Podcast Network is proud to have Fansets as its presenting sponsor. Fansets is the place for amazing pin collectibles, with over 400 officially licensed Star Trek pins and new releases every month. Stay tuned for a special discount code good on your next order at fansets.com just for Discovering Trek listeners. Fansets. Our pins have character. A pursuit, a lost cause, and seeing a familiar face. Season 4 of Star Trek Discovery is in full stride, and this week, in addition to working on figuring out how to deal with the big anomaly, the one that kind of threatens all life in the galaxy, Burnham is reunited with her mother to track down a killer, while at the same time trying to prevent a political disaster between the Federation, the Navarre, and the Qowat Milat. Set a course for the 32nd century, everyone. In for Dan Davidson, my name is Bill Smith, and we are Discovering Trek. Welcome one and all to Discovering Trek, the Star Trek Universe companion, presented by Fansets. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Dan is off this week as he and his family enjoy some much-needed time off down in Orlando, Florida, so we'll do our best here to carry on in his stead. It hasn't been all that long since the burn, and even when the Federation is giving away dilithium, chances are someone's going to show up and try to take it without asking. That happens this week, and someone pays for that with their life. All kinds of things are happening in this week's episode, Choose to Live, from family reunions to Romulan Warrior ninja nuns, better known as the Qowat Milat, and even Burnham and Tilly discovering and saving a completely new alien race. That's a lot. I'm glad I don't have to do this alone, that's for sure. I am relieved to have my trusted co-host to help me break down this week's episode. He may only be 3 time zones away, but looking at him, you'd swear he was one of the people who played Doctor Who in the 1970s with that hair. It's Kasey Shafsky. Hey, Kasey.
Hey, everybody.
I didn't say you played Michael Jackson. I said you played Doctor Who.
Sorry, that was an attempt at a BG. Long lost fifth brother.
Yeah, you are staying alive. And also, I've done the math. And I'm pretty sure that this person does more podcasts on this very network than I do. Her takeover of the network is slowly taking shape. It's Sara. Welcome back, Sara.
Oh, no. Hi. It's good to be here.
You've been found out.
I've been, darn it all. I was trying to sleek in like a cat, but I'm more like my dog after too many cookies. It's kind of Kool-Aid manning my way into the network.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Here comes Sara.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say let's fly, but I think oh, yeah is a much better vein to start off with.
Black alert. Black alert.
So from here on in, this episode of Discovering Trek contains spoilers. So if you haven't watched episode 3 of Star Trek Discovery Season 4, stop listening right now. That's right now, Kasey. Going over to Paramount Plus or wherever you happen to watch Discovery, watch the latest episode and then come on back here to Discovering Trek. Failure to do that puts you at risk to find out plot developments and character details for Choose to Live. Episode 403 of Star Trek Discovery, Choose to Live, is written by Terry Hughes Burton and directed by Christopher J. Byrne. Burnham and Tilly hunt the killer of a Starfleet officer as Stamets and the science team race against the clock to prevent the anomaly from killing anyone else. Originally released on December 2nd, 2021, it is the 3rd episode of Star Trek Discovery's 4th season.
Trainees, to the briefing room.
Guys, as we gather here in the briefing room to sort of start our discussion for this week's episode, let's get your high-level reactions. For you, was it a thumbs up or thumbs down, and why? Sara, we'll start with you.
I give it an unenthusiastic thumb up. One thumb. It was not my favorite episode this season, but I really did enjoy the Tilly storyline and her moments with so many of the characters on the show, especially Saru.
I can appreciate that. Kasey, what say you, sir?
I, Siskel, and Ebert did this with 2 thumbs up. I thought each storyline could have been a story plot line for an entire episode, and Navarre Society really intrigues me.
I can appreciate that too. I have a lot of questions since they're no longer Vulcan and kind of how that whole dynamic works. This one for me really just kind of ekes over the line into thumbs up territory. I appreciate some of the character work here, but largely the A story in this episode just doesn't work for me. I think it resolves way too quickly and way too conveniently. And Dan did bother to let us know that he gives this one just barely a thumbs up. There was some good stuff, but the whole new alien species thing and saving them, not knowing how their technology worked fast enough just to save them all, was a little bit too much for him. That's exactly kind of where I'm thinking. So let's break this down a little further. I'm going to say that sort of to kick it off. The one really positive thing about this episode is I think it strikes a very good balance between the serialized storytelling that Discovery's been known for and some very standalone stories. Without the continued storyline of Book and the dark matter anomaly, this really exists as a standalone episode. The way they blended this together, it felt to me like a Deep Space Nine episode. And I think that's probably the highest compliment I can give it, Kasey.
I hear you. Most definitely. This was an episode where, how I talked about briefly earlier, I thought each storyline could have been something that carried an individual episode and been done in more depth and might have made certain things a little more believable. Very Trek for me of, hey, aliens that we've never met before, but I happen to have the USB drive and I'll just stick it in there and it'll work and we'll fix everything. Yay! We're the Federation. So yeah, you're right. It almost felt like a gentle detour that they were doing of maybe going, oh God, we've got a whole nother really huge crisis happening again. Maybe a little more character development here that we can kind of ease things in. I don't know. It's an odd episode for me because there's aspects of it I really enjoyed and identified with, and other things that were just, I don't buy it.
Sarah, you said that this episode really kind of was an unenthusiastic thumbs up. Were any one of these storylines more resonant for you than the others?
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier briefly, the Tilly storyline for me has been really almost comforting to watch this season. I feel like there's a lot about what she's going through that I can relate to personally. It's been 22 months of working from home with COVID. I'm stuck in a rut. Like, I'm in a comfort zone, and I can admit that. And at the same time, though, there's a part of me that's like, you used to be really social. You used to want to go to the office. You used to want to be out in the world. You used to not mind the commute. Like, what's the problem? Like, why are you scared? Maybe this is a sign that it's time to take a chance, maybe get out of the comfort zone. So to see her going through something like that on the show where she's, interacting with different people saying, I'm trying something new and I've got to push myself and now is the time to do it. I'm really enjoying that. I really relate to that. And I feel like I haven't seen that in a lot of shows as of late, just this kind of self-discovery in an innocent way, but not so innocent, because people can find themselves in a situation like that for years, like years, and then be like, I missed my chance, right? So,
right.
Yeah, I find that a great storyline.
No, I have to agree with you there. I'm going to talk a little bit about that later on, but I can absolutely appreciate what that transcends for us as our experience today. Mm-hmm. I can appreciate that Tilly storyline greatly, although I got to admit, the more time goes on, I understand Stanley in the office more and more every day. Mm-hmm. I just want to sit there and do my crossword puzzles and just be left the hell alone.
If I don't get some cake soon, I might die. I mean, I say that all the time. Like, it's true.
A pretzel day.
Yeah. I love a pretzel day.
Pretzel day.
Yeah, it's true.
The Office podcast, coming from the Trek Geeks podcast network in 2030. Kasey, I get the sense that you're kind of identifying with Book in this episode.
Completely. It's, seeing that whole family situation, the brother, the nephew, all of that. It's like, Book, he's got this just deep need, desire to be part of a solution and willing to do whatever he can do to be of assistance. Because at the moment, he's pretty powerless. And just like, with this sense of guilt, with what did I miss? What did I miss? And, the barrage of self-questioning of what ifs, that can be all consuming to people. And I'm a parent, I'm an uncle, I'm a grandfather. And that whole book storyline, having someone know that you love them is the deepest thing ever. And, Book achieves that in this episode. I mean, recently our grandkids came back from a little trip and Grammy got a running hug from our 3-year-old granddaughter. And I didn't get one. And I was like, oh, man. And then yesterday we went over to do some Christmassy stuff and help them pick out a tree and all this stuff. And I got the running hug from inside the house. She's all just Gramps, and came through. And I was like, when somebody knows that you love them through not just your words, but through your actions, I'm going to tear up. It fulfills you. It makes you. And it's just with that book storyline. And that's probably part why I give it a little more enthusiastic thumbs up than other of y'all. But I was like, oh yeah, I felt that. Okay, I get it. And I was really emotionally wrapped up in this episode.
Yeah, and I think David Ajala is really doing an amazing job of what they're giving him to do this season. I mean, don't get me wrong, last season, he was fantastic. This season, I really feel like he's leveled up even more and is really putting on almost a clinic. I've seen his scenes and I feel what he feels. And this is some really great Star Trek that we're seeing. I feel grateful to be able to watch it because there are some dog episodes in Star Trek's past, but I think that what we're getting treated to now really is just amazing stuff. I want to pivot here for a second and talk about the Gray and Adira storyline because I think we probably all have some thoughts on it. I'll start and say, for me, the Golem is a little too bonk on the head. For me, I get it's a very convenient plot device. We just barely did it in Picard season 1. We transferred one of the all-time major characters into one of those things. And all of a sudden, 800 some odd years later, let's do it. We found this technology in our records. It's amazing. Nobody's used it since. It was a little too clear cut. Yes, I am so excited that everybody on the ship can see Gray now. I'm very, very pleased for what this means, not only for the character, but for the representation, for the challenges this creates for Gray and Adira. I think it's all fantastic. But for me, Sarah, I think it was just a little too easy. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It's kind of like how the episode in general with the aliens and this other storyline, it's all kind of wrapped up with the little bow at the top, a little too conveniently, which is, that it happens. We've seen it in multiple episodes before. My concern with the storyline is that they've really been tugging at the emotions, and I think they're doing it for evil reasons, and I'm just trusting my gut instinct that something's not going to last very long in the happiness of the reunion, as you see in shows oftentimes. There's just this happening now they're going to shake it up. They're going to give them a couple of episodes, I think, and they're going to shake things up. And I don't know how they're going to do that, and I don't know in what way, but I'm just kind of preparing myself of being like, okay, enjoy these small moments, but just brace yourself because this show, it can do anything to you. And so that's where I'm at with it.
I get the sense that they're not long to be together either because, we know that Gray wants to go back to Trill and become a Guardian, right, Kasey? Yeah.
Absolutely. I think they've set it up. So Sara has it perfectly down that it's like, Gray is finally getting to be in the body that Gray wants to be in. So, a certain storyline for the show, but also for a whole portion of society of being who you truly are. And that's now happening. But yeah, it's like that character is training to be a Guardian, and as kind of we've said before, the cast is really big right now. And it almost feels, that we get this shotgun approach on certain things where things are just scattered around. And I mean, did we see the bridge crew at all this episode?
Barely.
And so I think this could be another pivotal moment in this series of where now Gray has his body. And what are the choices going to be for that character from this point on? I don't know.
I don't know either. I think that, this episode is aptly titled, even if it is a little too bonk on the head. I mean, so many characters in this episode get the opportunity to choose to live. Mm-hmm. I mean, Book chooses to progress through his grief and kind of process some of that with Tarina on Vulcan. Gray chooses to inhabit the Golem. Tilly chooses to live her life outside of comfort zones. There are a lot of paths chosen in here that are not necessarily ones that our characters would have thought they'd been on at one point in their lives, but now here they are trying to make the best of it. The one part about this storyline that just really doesn't ring for me is the whole lost cause of the story and the aliens in the moon, if you will. It doesn't seem like the cause was all that lost. And it wasn't much of a cause if Tilly and Burnham figured it out in about 2 minutes. So I can understand wanting to protect these beings, although I'm sure that at one point they thought it was grave robbing. But I don't think that this was a strong enough A story to carry this episode. I do think that there were some great developments as the result of it, particularly for Tilly. But Sarah, it's this one just doesn't do it.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny you say that because my head was like nodding, like I almost hurt my neck, almost pulled a muscle. You get older, you sneeze and you pull something out. But just that whole, she had a mission to protect this species of alien, or that was the mission that she chose because they had to live. Well, how many people did you kill to make this happen? Like this is that whole, a life for a life, and whose is more important. And it was that whole storyline. I just didn't dig it. I really didn't.
Kasey, I think that I would have been better served if this had been a lesser storyline and any one of the other two had been elevated to something greater. Although I got to say, this is the most Star Trek of the storylines, if I want to call it that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. This is where I think each one of these stories could have benefited by being in an episode where we had a strong A and B story, not ABC. Because it was really, the whole wrap up of when it's a whole alien culture that, no one's ever seen before. It's like, what, but you don't know. As someone else from another, Galaxy Quest type thing, you don't know. What are you pushing buttons for? You're just walking out there. So anything they could have touched could have blown the whole thing to smithereens. And I was like, I love seeing Burnham's mom back, Qowat Milat. I love all of that. But when it wraps up so fast in a 55-minute deal, and you're 1/3 of the story, everything seems so rushed. And it's like, okay, well, how long is she going to actually hold this blade to Dr. Burnham's neck? Is it 5 minutes, 10 minutes? Was it an hour that Tilly was faking not being able to fix the thing to give, Burnham time? I don't know. But yeah, on those things, that's where I was suspecting we wouldn't get a full-blown conclusion to each storyline in this episode, and I was wrong.
Well, and that kind of happens, right? I mean, it's the nature of the storytelling. In the press junkets for Star Trek Discovery Season 4, I asked, Michelle Paradise, each season keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Is there a point where it gets too big? And she's like, well, that's kind of sort of the mission of Discovery, as sort of Kurtzman laid it out. This is supposed to be an epic series, a bold series, doing things that other ones aren't doing. And so there will always be a larger threat. And I'm okay with a larger thread as long as they take the time to break the story the right way. And I think that this is one that probably could have used some polish because some of the A story works, some of the B story works, some of the C story works. I just don't know that it works as well together cohesively.
100%. That makes a ton of sense. And if this is the series that's going to go for the super big, bold swings, maybe have that known a little bit more publicly on certain things. Like, hey, you know what we're going to do for this series? We're going to kind of emulate certain things of like the movies, because the movies always tried to top themselves. And in this one, it's almost like, you know, hey, we ran a sprint. You got to jog for 5 yards. We're running another sprint. Okay, you got your 5 yards again. And it's like, oh, we're on our fourth 2x200 sprint here. And it's like, you know, after a while you get gassed. It's like, I got nothing left. So if it's going to keep being these big swings, you know, can we handle that as an audience? I don't know.
It has to connect. If they're going to swing that hard, it has to connect. Because otherwise the fastball's just going to go right on by them, to use a baseball analogy. And I think that's when you get situations like this. Yeah, it's just barely thumbs up for a lot of people. That tells me that, okay, it's probably one that could use a little more work. Here's hoping that next week progresses the characters and the overall storyline in a better way. The Trek Geeks Podcast Network is proud to have Fansets as its presenting sponsor. Their love of Trek can be seen in every single Star Trek pin they produce, and with over 400 pins to select from, and new pins being added every single month, you are sure to find whatever you're looking for to add to your collection. Whether it's one of the amazing deltas from your favorite Trek series, a beloved character, or maybe even a special edition collector set, you know that Fansets pins are made with the finest quality and come with the best customer service in the industry. So head on over to fansets.com today, check out all of their amazing pins from all the different genres they represent. Start by adding a bunch of pins, accessories, or even gift cards to your shopping cart, and at checkout, enter discount code word Discovering Trek for an amazing 10% off your entire order. That's Discovering Trek in all capital letters with no spaces for 10% off your fansets.com purchase. And don't forget, if you're in the United States and spend more than $30, you're also going to get free shipping. Fansets. Our pins have character. And we thank our friends at Fansets for being the presenting sponsor of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network.
Of all the souls I have encountered in my travels, his was the most human.
Star Trek has always been a reflection of our times, and in this segment, we'll take a look at what this episode helps us discover about humanity, or perhaps what it might even tell us about ourselves. And, well, since I'm here this week for the first time this season, I'm going to go first.
Yay!
Dealer's choice, baby.
Dealer's choice. You know, I've thought about my own comfort zones a lot lately, and the past 2 years have created one for me right in my very own home. Sara talked about this a bit ago, but I'm reaching a point where I have to start venturing out, and it's all really quite daunting to me. As someone who's had to work with the challenge of situational anxiety, the idea of re-entering the world causes its own set of concerns and things to freak out about. It seems like there are no comfort zones for anyone on board the Discovery this season either. Everyone has to adapt and learn a new world, something that we ourselves have to do here and now. Our crew is in this together, but their paths are all unique and different as ours are in reality. While we've all figured out how to navigate this pandemic, we've all done it very differently and in the way that works best for us. And that's really all we can do. Sara.
I did not want to rewatch this episode, and I admit it, and I struggled to pay attention, and I was thinking about the humanity question a lot, and I was just like near the end of the episode, and I was like, oh man, I'm going to have to think of something to talk about. And then it hit me when Michael Burnham is talking to the president at the end of the episode saying, you know, is there going to be justice for the slain Starfleet officer, because we found that the woman is being returned and not really punished. Like, we don't really know a lot of details, and it just stuck with me about, well, what is justice, Michael? Like, what do you mean? Is it you're wanting more? Do you want revenge? Do you want to feel do you want to feel better about it? Do you want others to feel better about it? How much of it is personal versus this is for the betterment of society? I listen to a lot of true crime. I studied criminology in college, so this is something that fascinates me a lot, is the topic of justice. The family of the fallen Starfleet officer deserve justice, but I couldn't help but just say, what is that going to be? Taking their life, putting them in prison, forced labor, solitary, torture. I mean, should the victims of this have some say in what justice would be? Should those that are left in the wake of tragedy and crime have more of a voice? You know, there's millions of people in prison and millions of dollars are spent on housing them for a range of crimes. And I wonder if those who are affected by those crimes feel justified, or do some feel smug or victorious? What if there was no punishment because the offender was trying to do good, or it was a political move? And it just really resonated with me with that, her asking that question of they deserve justice. And I was like, what does that look like? And yeah, it hurt my brain by the end of it. I was like, I gotta stop. I don't know. I'm just gonna go down a deep dive here of Webster's dictionary defines justice. And I'm like, nope, let's not go there. But it stood out to me as one of the big things. And I'm curious to see if we hear any more about that character now and what happened with her and the ramifications of the actions that took place.
Absolutely. Kasey.
Well, this season is the COVID season on Discovery. You know, we've got a devastating external threat that causes us to be introspective. And introspection of who we are, who we think we are, who we hold dear, what we hold dear, and who are we becoming as we age. In this episode, I found characters thinking about and acting upon fundamental questions or truths of who am I? Why am I here? What's my purpose? What's my stand? And the three storylines are tethered together in these questions. I mean, come on any day, haven't we all at some point given some type of thought to one of these questions or a version of these questions? Because when I think about it, it's like, we're evolving every moment. The changes we face as we live our lives are the launching points for us to decide who we are and how we'll manifest or embody our love, fear, happiness, grief, wonder, gratitude, and sense of self. In this episode, I saw things that were going on with Gray and with Tilly representing the audience. And for me, really, Tilly was representing the audience, uncomfortable with what is happening, a bit self-conscious to ask for help, even though she knows that she needs it. And even in her awkwardness, asking for help proves her strength by taking on new or different or out of comfort zone actions. That's what we've all done for such a long time during the pandemic. We're finding out what we can do, what we can't do. It's finding out taking care of one's physical and mental health while being aware of those around you that might be dealing with the same. And that, for me, is our humanity.
Commendations, palm leaf of Axonar Peace Mission, Grand Kite Order of Tactics, Class of Excellence, Prenteris Ribbon of Commendation.
Okay, everyone, time for some awards, because we love to give awards, especially when there's nobody really here to receive them. But it's Starfleet commendations, that moment of the show where we call out the two or three things that we think really stood out above the rest. Through a coin flip, it was determined that Sara would go first. So, Sara, you're up.
Oh, boy, I win. Why didn't this happen when I played Keno last night?
I know, right?
It's always just so misdirected. I'm just going to give my one big shout out this week it's Mary. Mary Wiseman is just a treasure. And this is me being brutally honest here, but I don't watch TV often to learn a lesson or to relate. I just watch it for pure entertainment. Let me take a break from my real life and just relax. And she's just kind of getting in my face saying, no, you know what? We're gonna work through some stuff together. And her acting and her just subtle ways of delivering so much depth to a great character. I don't know. I just can't say enough about it. She's a true treasure.
Without question. Kasey, I imagine that you may have some thoughts on some commendations.
I do, my friend. One, the showing on screen of female leadership. The president of Navarre, played by Tara Rosling, is so nuanced and authentic, and I dig every time that she's on the show because there's always good stuff that comes with her. Sonia Sohn as Dr. Burnham consistently brings the goods in her performance, and Sheila Horsdal as the Federation president brings a whole nother dynamic to the series. But I really like seeing where we have so many women in leadership, and it's different than all of the other series that have come before. Another commendation, the more we learn about Navarre, the better, as far as I'm concerned. I want to know so much more. This is what I go into an episode. Some of the Vulcans seem to be just a bit more open about emotions, and I want to know, it's like, how did the Romulans influence the society to deal with emotions? You know, just that whole combination going on. I think the writers and producers have set themselves up here really nicely, that if it's not going to be, you know, Crisis of the Year or Towering Inferno every season, that a deep dive into Navarre would be something that I think they've set up for us nicely.
That would be pretty amazing. For accommodations this week, I'm going to call out the visual effects team. You know, seeing the work that this team does week in and week out proves that this really is some of the best work on television today. Those scenes inside the moon, the giant cavern in the moon where the aliens were, and you get that sort of turbo lift scene where they're progressing up to where the controls are. That was just some cinematic quality that was amazing. They continue to blow me away with every single episode. And then my other commendation for the week just has to go to Mary Wiseman. You know, Tilly has clearly evolved from the wide-eyed cadet that she was in season 1, and I truly appreciate the uncertainty with which the character is being portrayed now. Mary's work so far this season has been fantastic, and I'm here for it. She continues to be a bright spot, for sure. Well, guys, that was pretty painless and pretty quick for all intents and purposes, but that's going to do it for this week. It's I'm so glad we had this chance to be together for a brief time. Tear.
Oh, no crying, no single tears. You'll make us all tear up. It's great to have you back.
Tear.
It's not the same without you.
Oh, thank you. It's not the same without Dan too, because I'm sure we'll get feedback to that effect.
Positive feedback?
I have no love for him. He's in the happiest place on earth, and I'm just so jealous, and I'll say it.
I know. He left you with me. That's really what this comes down to.
If he brings us presents back, then it'll be okay. If not, he's dead to me.
That's fair. But until the such time, Kasey, can you tell us what's coming up in episode 4 for Star Trek Discovery?
Oh, my friend, I sure can. Next week, Tilly and Adira lead a team of Starfleet Academy cadets on a training mission that takes a dangerous turn, while Burnham is pulled into tense negotiations on Navarre. It's episode 4, All is Possible, and we will break it all down next week. Until then, remember that you can subscribe to Discovering Trek by searching for us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or by heading to discoveringtrek.com.
Guys, thank you so much for a great discussion this week. Of course, we want to know what you, the listeners, think of our discussion. Hit us up on Twitter and give us your thoughts at Discovering Trek. We would love to hear from you. That does it for our discussion of episode 3, Choose to Live, Romulans and Vulcans and Latinum-infused aliens. Oh my! No. As always, we want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to listen to us talk about Star Trek Discovery each and every week. We're truly glad to be back, and we wouldn't be here without your support, and thank you so very much. We'll be back next week to talk about episode 4, All is Possible. Until then, here are some words of wisdom from Mr. Spock in the TOS episode, Let That Be Your Last Battlefield. Change is the essential process of all existence. And until next week, never stop discovering.
Music for Discovering Trek is provided by 5 Year Mission. They're writing an original song for each episode of Star Trek. Hear more of their music at 5yearmission.net. Discovering Trek is a production of Coconut Media Works. Executive producers Bill Smith and Dan Davidson. For more great Star Trek discussion, discover the other shows of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network at trekgeeks.com or find us in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.